Welcome back. In this video, we are focused purely on the programming questions for subroutines in your J277 Paper 2 exam. We will look at writing them from scratch and fixing broken code. Let's start with the classic 4-mark procedure. So, if you had a question, always read every bullet point very carefully. So, exam question 1, 4 marks. Write a procedure called check score that takes a parameter called score, outputs pass if the score is 50 or more, outputs fail if the score is than 50. So again, double check, read the bullet points carefully. It asks for a procedure, which means we will be printing the results, not returning it. This is not a function. First, let's define the procedure and add the parameter. Okay, so first thing we need is def for defining check underscore score there. That is our procedure. Write a procedure called check score. Okay, takes one parameter called score, so that's the parameter. Remember, parameters is the variables inside the procedure, and the arguments are in the main code at the bottom. Okay. Now we need is some if statement to check if it is above 50 or fail if the score is less than 50. So remember, we need to indent our code. If score is greater than or equal to 50, we know that if it's greater than 50, it says pass. So how do we output? We do print, remember, lowercase p, sorry, and we're going to output the words pass. Else, if it is not, we don't need to do a whole nother elif for this because it's just two criteria, pass and fail. So we can just do print fail. And then let's run that code. Why doesn't it output? Nothing is being outputted. So how do we call this function? We need to use this procedure. Remember, it's not a function. There's nothing being returned. So we're going to check underscore score here. That's the variable name. And what do you want to send? So we're going to send over a value. Let's say we send in the grade 75. That should be a pass, a failing score now. So we're going to send our argument here. We're going to send 25 and we're going to send it up here. Remember, this is our main code, and we're going to send 25 up to our score up here, our parameter, and then it's going to do the if statement based on what we sent. So if we send 25, it should say fail. There we go, fail. Now what happens if we use two arguments when it should be just one argument going across because there's only one parameter? We get an error. If you look here, it takes one positional argument, but two were given on line 15. So it is impossible to send the wrong value up because we can only send the corresponding argument to the parameter. Okay, so let's review what we've done. This is a 4-marker. So 1 mark to write the procedure called check score. We've done that. Okay, that takes a parameter called score. We've done that. That's 1 mark. Outputs pass if the score is 50. So we've done that. That's another mark. And outputs fail if the score is less than 50. That's another mark. That is a simple 4-marker question using a procedure. Another very common question style is finding and fixing errors in a subroutine that someone else has written. Let's look at this broken code. So I'm going to get rid of this question, paste another question. So exam question 2, 3 marks. The function below should double a number and send the results back to the main program. It contains a logic error. Remember, logic error doesn't really give us an error message. There's no error message appearing. Identify and fix the error so the function works correctly. If you remember what I said previously about functions, the difference between a function and procedure, you should easily be able to spot what the issue is here. At a first glance, the maths looks completely fine. Number times 2 will indeed double the number. But look closely at the question brief. It says this is a function. Yeah. And it must send the results back to the main program. There's no return value being sent here. Okay. So instead of print answer, we can change this to return answer. And we have fixed the error. This error was using a print statement, and instead we've changed it to a return, because functions must use the return keyword to pass data back to the main global code. Spotting the difference between printing and returning is one of the easiest ways to score marks in the exam. It's you're debugging the code, you're fixing it, and you're able to do this. And how do we call this now? So when this is returning back to the main, so we need to call it results. We can call it wherever we want. We're going to store whatever it's been. So double, that's the function's name, number, and we're going to give it the number 8. So we're going to send 8 up there. It's going to store it inside number, and then the answer is going to be number times 2, and we're going to return the answer and store it inside results. Now, how do we see what's inside results? We need to print it out, obviously. Run that, control enter. I've done a mistake. I've done a simple mistake. I've spelled double wrong here. So if we do double number, just to make sure your spelling is on point in the lesson and in your exam. So now I've sent it over 8, it's doubled it and returned it again. Function names and procedure names, all subroutine names must match. Like if you do exactly what I did there and you spelt it wrong, it will give you an error. Okay, now let's tackle a 6 marks question. Okay, so I'm going to paste the question here. These type of 6 markers often in the exam combine 2 different programming techniques or constructs, like iteration and erase. That's what we're going to do. So let's read this question first. Exam question 3, 6 marks. Write a function called calculate total. So we know we need to define a function called calculate total that takes an array as a parameter of prices as a parameter. So we know there's one parameter, that's 1 mark. Loop through the array to calculate the total cost. Now we need to do a loop. Which loop do we need to do? Do we need to do a for loop or a while loop? We'll figure that out. Then returns the final total. Okay. This is a bit harder than the previous one, but we approach it exactly the same way. First bullet point, define the function. Okay. So how do we define? So we're going to start with something very simple. Define calculate total, and then and it needs to take an array list of, so let's call it price underscore list. Imagine this is the array that's been going. So this is the one parameter, 1 mark taken already. Okay. And then we're going to be adding things up. So how do we make sure we start from a correct output, for correct total? So we should always start the total at 0. Yeah. So we're going to start the total at 0. That's When you add it up, we add each price to the total. So it starts from total. Now for the loop. We don't know how many items are in the list, but we can use code to work that out for us. And for this, we need a for loop because we're going to go through the list, and the list has a certain amount of items. So I'm going to write for price in price list. We use this item, and this is our new variable. So every item in the list is going to be 1 by 1 from location 0, going to store it in price, location 1, and it will automatically end when there is no more items or prices left in the list. So now we just need to add the total. Total equals total plus price. This adds each item 1 by 1 to the total. So it was 0 first, 0 plus the first item, and then now let's say it is a new value, the next price, the next price, and next price, and that saves all the totals in one place. And then it says returns the final total. So we need to use the final mark. We need to return total. This code earns all 6 marks. So even though we've not called the function, we don't even need to see the array. We've written a function called calculate total. Let's give it a play. Nothing happens because we've not called it. Takes an array as a list. So this is an array of prices as a parameter. So this is one parameter. That's 1 mark. 1 mark. That's 2 in total. Takes an array list. Yep. So loops through the array. So we've done a for loop for every item in the list. Yep. And calculates the total cost. We've initialized the total cost with every item. We've added to the total, and then finally returns the value back to the original. This is all you need to write in the exam. But for checking if we did this correctly, for now, just for the video, let's test this out. Let's make an array. How do we write an array? We need to use a square bracket, and let's give it 2 values, 15 and 5. So that is our 2 prices. And how do we send this up to calculate? We call the array of the function calculate total, and we send this array up. This is the argument we're going to use. We're going to send the array up to the parameter price list, and it's going to go through. Well, what error have we made? We've returned it, but it's not returning it anywhere there. So we need to store the results. We can call it whatever. I'm going to call it results, and we're going to print out the results at the end. Let's run that out. So we sent 15 and 5 up, and it's scanned through the array 1 by 1, and it's stored all the totals inside. 15 plus 5. It returns the results, stores it inside results, and then now we've printed out the results, which is 20. And that covers everything. So hopefully this is covered. Not only has it covered a function, it's covered how to do a return, how to do the exam question, and we've also covered how to do an array, right? Square brackets, how to use a loop to go through an array. So that's this video done.